Hey guys, this is Teopia Sable, and we're going to be talking about another supposedly controversial topic, although it really shouldn't be. Sucker Punch has just recently released a gameplay walkthrough for Ghost of Yotei, a game that people are apparently super excited for. Some people are bashing it, saying it's going woke, and the people on the other side are bashing those guys, saying that they're dumb and that they're exaggerating. I gotta tell you guys, after PlayStation's recent output of games, and especially after Concord, I've permanently tapered my expectations for their exclusives until they actually come out. And I'm surprised more people aren't. There are some people that go over the top saying that they're not going to play the game just because there's a woman in it and crap like that, but most of us are just a little scared that another beloved series, and developer for that matter, is going to go down the same drain as all of our other favorite PlayStation exclusive series. And I'm gonna say, guys, we should be scared about this game. People keep saying that this game will be fine, that it's good old Sucker Punch at the helm, and that Ghost of Tsushima was a masterpiece with a compelling story and main protagonist, incredible world, immersive combat, and nearly flawless presentation art direction. And it was all those things. So that means that this game will be good too. But I feel like those people aren't aware of the reports stating that Sucker Punch has apparently changed over 80% of the team that they had during development of Ghost of Tsushima. Although this is a rumor, for now at least. Before you go back to feeling like all is well, let me inform you that the actor for the main protagonist, who looks like this, by the way, is a woke activist who says the night between AAPI History Month and Pride is the zenith of Geisha power, and legally you have to say "we cute."
Whatever you may want.
You know, I'm usually a very law abiding citizen, but in this case, I think I'll have to make an exception. I don't care what she does in her own time, but it's hard to believe that someone who's as involved as she is would accept this role if it didn't gel with her own ideology. And seriously, her ideology would ruin this series because it would not fit. Not all video games have to be immersive, some are just fun, and that's okay. But one of the best parts of Ghost of Tsushima was how immersive it was in every sense of the word, how authentic it was to the time period. And as we saw in AC Shadows and Dragon Age the Veilguard, this kind of ideology ruins that. We'll get back to those games later. Beyond that, the lead writer for this game is a person from the writing team of Dragon Age the Veilguard. I know. It's the team that brought us such winners like this one.
So, I'm non binary. What does that mean?
And no, before you attack me for that one, it's not the inclusion of the topic itself that's so bad. It's the way that it touched on such a delicate topic in a way that made it seem like it was a joke. It's so freaking terrible. And now one of those people, one of the people that wrote that trash is the head writer of this game. You could say maybe this person was the one good, reasonable voice amongst the bunch, but really,
Are you willing to risk it? Curse you.
it's like my boy Asmongold says,
It's like, how many points on the graph do you need to make a line?
are you scared yet? Well, then let's talk about the story, or at least what we know about it so far. So, apparently, it's been revealed to us by multiple interviews and this new trailer that this is a revenge story. Plain and simple. And I do think that people have a point when they say that a revenge story is much less interesting and creative than anything that the first game did. Not to say that it can't work, but it's been done to death when the first game gave us a concept that was much more fresh. Stay with me though, because this is where it gets interesting. Are you ready for this? The plot is that our protagonist watches her family get slaughtered by a group of men in masks, who then leave her for dead. Now you might be saying, Tio, this is Assassin's Creed Shadow footage that you're showing in the background. And well, I can't believe that they're copying Assassin's Creed Shadow of all things. No, seriously. Of all the recent games that you could have copied, you chose this one. It's like they saw what Shadows did and said to themselves, that's a great idea. But we have to make it bigger, so just add a couple more family members to the kill count. So again, the lead writer is a writer from Dragon Age, the Veilguard, and they're taking inspiration from Assassin's Creed Shadows. There's also a moment in this trailer when they're talking about all the pain that she has to face when revisiting her hometown. And instead of showing us something sensible like, oh, I don't know, her looking into the faces of the people who murdered her entire family, they decide to illustrate this pain by showing her reaching for a sword that her dad is holding. Her dad pulling that sword away from her and shaking his head, because this is Japan at a time where that wasn't common. And beyond that, maybe because going into the danger of battle is not something that his dad wants to inflict on his daughters, because he loves them and respects them, because he wants to protect them from that world, because he wants them to be happy, that kind of stuff. And then Gollum here gets visibly upset, of course, because her dad is holding her back from greatness? What is this? The Mulan remake? I do think this flashback mechanic is a cool idea that's clearly made possible by the newer PS5 hardware. But if the flashbacks are just going to be, you can't do this because you're a girl, I'm not even going to use the mechanic. Like, I thought that this kind of story where, a woman in this time period becomes a lethal killer could work when it's a revenge story and she's left by herself, because then it makes sense. She either dies or learns to survive, and in that, it would make sense for her to want to get this revenge. It would make sense for her to train herself to find these guys and take them out. That makes perfect sense. But they're making it about exactly what you fear most, it seems like. Wouldn't it have been a more interesting story if she reviled weapons and war, or was afraid of them, and then her family gets slaughtered and she blames herself for that, deciding to dedicate her life to something she wanted nothing to do with in order to avenge her family instead of just a plain revenge quest? And they're going to make the dad out to be some sort of bad dude, not letting his daughter achieve her dreams, holding her back from greatness. He's going to be the one that she gets mad at eventually, and she'll find peace knowing that it wasn't really her fault because Daddy-O wouldn't let a child fight the murderers for him. Gracious! Are you scared now? Well, then let's talk about how this game doesn't really change a lot from the last game, and how they don't really seem to understand what the fans want. See, when we saw in the trailer all these different weapon types, we were asking ourselves how they were going to mix up the combat. How would having guns and no honor code change how we do things? The answer is they won't. Not really, at least. And I know that you're getting a bunch of new weapon types and inexplicably able to carry them around to all the other stuff you're already doing. But if we have 5 different weapon types and all 5 weapons do the exact same thing as the stances from Ghost of Tsushima, then is it really all that different? By this I mean that each weapon is better against a certain type of enemy. Each one has different attack speeds, damage outputs, and staggering damage, which means combat has not changed that much from the first game. It's just an aesthetic change. The lead developers themselves have confirmed this.
In Tsushima, we really loved our stance system where the player could choose one of 4 ways to hold the weapon to combat a particular type of enemy. In Ghost of Yotei, we took that system and we expanded it. Instead of 4 stances, there are now 5. We took that same system and we said, okay, instead of stances, it's new melee weapons. Functionally, it's the same as stances, but it's more.
Can I also just say that it's dumb that she carries 5 different weapons with her? That's not, she's a girl, girls can't do that. It's general disbelief that anyone can do that. And climb, and parkour, and sneak around, all with 5 very heavy weapons hidden somewhere around there that I don't even know where she's putting all those weapons. In the first game, he did have somewhat of an arsenal, but it could mostly be believed. It was like bombs and knives and sound things and maybe some like arrows. But with this one, I think it just goes a little too far. I mean, look, there's literally no transitional animation when swapping weapons here. Anyway, tangent over. Actually, speaking about the parkour, one thing is also that they haven't improved the parkour at all, really. It's still quite floaty, which worked just fine for Infamous, where you had freaking superpowers, and was fine in Ghost of Tsushima, as it was a first entry. But you think that after all this time, after like almost 20 years, that they would have done something and to make it more realistic and complex, at least for this game. But they didn't even bother to change it. It makes me kind of side with the people calling this a DLC, and why I don't trust their nonsense about all the ways this game supposedly improves on the first game. Same with the stealth, it looks like. From the trailer, it looks like it almost hasn't been changed except for the addition of a few new tools and some animation changes, which is actually kind of bad because the stealth in the first game, while not bad, was probably the weakest part. It needed to be fleshed out. Yet, they're just going to leave it the way it is, as a second thought. Great. Getting back to their nonsense, they also hyped up this card system, claiming that it's revolutionizing the quest journal system even though it's literally no different. Like, who asked for this? How does this change the quest system in any way? All this does is change the way the quests you collect are organized and how they look. The only way that things really change is the way that you progress the story, which gives you more choices. In part, I'm down with this. Sucker Punch made the Infamous series, one of my favorite series, which heavily relied on the choices you made to change your gameplay. So it makes sense. But then again, it's giving me Assassin's Creed Shadow flashbacks. I know, right? Like Shadows, this could mean that the series pulls back from a narrative focused story in exchange for choice, which sounds good in theory, but like with AC Shadows, it just screws up the pacing and impact of the story, which Ghost of Tsushima kinda relied on, by the way. This could, in theory, sacrifice narrative fluidity and quality in favor of player choice. Again, that may sound good or at least fine, but let's not forget how that screwed up Dying Light 2's story, alright? This hardly ever works out for these types of story driven games, even the open world ones. Hey guys, so I was actually in the research I was doing for this video, I should say. I was looking and I found this article where it says that like you don't get to kill these guys in whatever order you want. You actually have to go and do it according to what the story says. I guess the only like choice, quote unquote, that you get is just you get to choose what kind of mission you do to make that happen. I guess I don't know. Like it is. This is a good thing. This is better than what I would thought it was going to be because this at least maintains in some aspect the flow of the story. I just I don't know. Sucker Punch is just pretty good at designing these types of scenarios, so maybe they'll be able to make it work. But it's like I don't know if it's gonna work as well as having it just be straight up linear. Although I could be wrong. It could be pretty good. But I just wanted to point out that I did find this and that it is still a little different than what I said. So just thought I'd point that out. The thing that irks me is that they keep talking about how this game is going to be better than the first one. Much less repetitive, much more open, much more diverse. And I'm talking gameplay wise, not the dreaded day beast. But the thing is, it just feels like they're either lying or they don't really realize that the gameplay loop they're setting up seems like it'll be repetitive anyway. Oh my goodness, they pop out of the snow! But like, that doesn't really make the game super different or not repetitive, you know? If the gameplay loop is to go to a settlement, take down Guy, interrogate him, go to a revealed place to get a reward, rinse and repeat, that's just as repetitive as anything the first game had. It's funny how they rank on the first game's activities for being repetitive, and yet in their showcase, they shamelessly show that they were using said repetitive activities. I just feel like they're trying to downplay how amazing the first one was in order to artificially prop this one up. Kind of like in recent Marvel movies, they introduce the replacements for the heroes that people actually like and bring the older heroes down to make the newer heroes stand higher on their pedestal. And they have to do it a lot to bring these new people up, let me tell you. But getting back to it, they make an issue of the first game's so called repetitive activities when I honestly don't think anyone really had a problem with doing these missions. I personally never had a problem taking a scenic climb down a beachside cliff to pay my respects at a shrine, or testing my skills at a bamboo cutting stand, or tapping into my spiritual side by making a haiku and meditating on the meaning of life, or even dueling one of their master Ronin in one of the most cinematic and breathtaking backdrops in gaming. They had repeat activities, but they weren't just fun. They were amazing to look at, to feel, and to listen to. And they were thoughtfully spaced out, like you didn't run into the same thing over and over again a lot of the time. I swear, they're doing this so they can offer a handful more activities that will be copied and pasted just like the first one anyway, to try and trick us into thinking that they're solving a problem that was never actually a problem by doing more of the same. But don't worry, you guys, Sucker Punch hasn't forgotten about you real Ghost of Tsushima fans. They bring something we've all been waiting for. Are you ready for this? It's an exploration mode that plays lo-fi hip-hop while you traverse the landscape. Who out there is excited for this? Who out there is losing their mind? Nobody? I thought so. It makes me cringe infinitely that they're acting like the people were anxiously waiting for this feature. I ain't never heard even a single person talk about this, except for the main actress. Now I'll be mentioning the almighty Rat King once again, but I will refrain from doing it a third time so that we don't see him in our bathroom mirror tonight. That being said, I think Asmongold's reaction to this feature is pretty much the perfect representation of how everyone except for the main actress will react to this.
That's cool.
And lastly, we've partnered with the director of Samurai Champloo, Shinichiro Watanabe.
What?
Turn this mode on to listen to some original lo-fi tracks directed by Watanabe himself.
What? Okay. That's all right. I didn't expect that. I think these are kind of like, I mean, in my opinion, these are kind of like gimmicks, right? But it's cool. Sure.
You know, I, much like Sucker Punch, do not like to be very repetitive. But hey, does them awkwardly adding hip hop music to a Japanese setting remind you guys of anything? Although, to be fair, this is not putting in hip hop music as soon as the only black guy in Japan and the entire game shows up. So, there is that. Real quick, let's touch on the topic of Gollum here. I may make my jokes, but honestly, I don't really care all that much if she's ugly. Most of the time, I'm going to have the mask on her face anyway. This isn't Star Wars Outlaws. The actress for this game is not really that pretty, in my opinion. So, and I'm not expecting them to make her Stellar Blade. Nor do I even really want that, to be perfectly honest. Like, it's just not really necessary. Yuna in the first game wasn't drop dead gorgeous. Why does this lady have to be? Does this face scare you guys? One last thing to talk about in relation to all of this, basically. One of the things that scares me the most has to do with one of the bigger changes. See, I'm not really a history buff, so when Ghost of Tsushima's story ended, I wasn't sure what else they could do with the story, honestly. So when they announced the new game, and that would be based 200 years after the first one, at first I thought it would make sense. It wouldn't have worked to just make another game on the same map very well. But then I was watching this guy's channel, the Zimbro, or I'm not sure exactly how you pronounce it. I was watching his video on the subject, and he said that the Mongols invaded the mainland of Japan after Tsushima, and how they could have made that into the story for the next game. And I was like, what? So I looked it up, and yeah, that's exactly what happened. And I know, dumb homeschooled kid stuff, but this is not something that I was required to learn and only had a vague knowledge of what happened during these invasions. But really, you're telling me that there's another historical backdrop that they could have used, that they could have stuck with a fan favorite character for at least one more game, and they decided to pass up on that? This just makes me think that they knew that, but didn't care. They just wanted to do anything they could to have female protagonists, despite there being a story or two more that Jin could tell. I'm not against female protagonists. I love Mirror's Edge. I love Metroid Prime. I love Uncharted Lost Legacy. Well, I like Uncharted Lost Legacy. I have no problem with this. I'm just saying that it seems like they wanted to kick Jin out the door to move on to this much less interesting and likable character. Something PlayStation has done before. Have we already forgotten about The Last of Us 2? Okay, sorry, I'm cutting back because I made the rest of this video a while before I'm recording this. But I was researching a little about the game, like looking for articles that I saw before, and I came across this article that literally says, it's a rumor, okay, so I guess take it with a grain of salt, but it literally says that they repurposed a Ghost of Tsushima sequel for Ghost of Yotei. So the thing I said about the whole them just wanting to push Jin out of the door and replace him with this much less interesting character. I mean, I guess we don't know that for sure, but I mean, come on, guys. But like, we all know why this happened. But I was surprised just to find this, and not just this. This is one of the articles I found, but there was like 6 or 8 other articles. It's not like there's one off news place that was reporting on it. But this just goes to show you that, yeah, they did try and push Jin out the door. They did want to, like, they were working on the game. That's probably why it also feels so similar. Just can't believe this, honestly. And to be fair, I've had my expectations tapered on PlayStation exclusives for a long time, like I said before. It's one reason why I switched to PC gaming. So I already was keeping my expectations low for this game too. Especially after Sucker Punch released the DLC for Ghost of Tsushima. Spoiler alert, by the way. I love a lot of the games that those guys have made. A lot. But I already saw their descent into the gutter coming after the Iki Island DLC that they released for Ghost of Tsushima was basically just an excuse to character assassinate Jin's father and paint him as a colonizer. And when I say colonizer, I know that it has like a negative spin to it, but it just means they paint him under the same light as they do someone that they're trying to paint under that light in like a movie or a show, where it's like this person comes in and takes everything and murders everyone. It's just a evil person inside and out, just that kind of thing is what I'm talking about. Making him the villain of the entire DLC and actually trying to make you side more with the guy that murdered his father, which completely undercuts Jin's character because his whole thing is that because he failed to help or save his dad, he commits himself to help and to save anyone who cannot defend themselves, no matter what the cost, which is the main drive of the main story of the game. Now, by doing this to his dad, it makes me wonder if he, or at least part of him, actually just let his dad die because of the guilt he felt towards their treatment of the people living on the island, which completely dismantles who he is. I mean, for goodness sake, his dad is literally the wind at his back during the entire main story. He's what guides you to do these things. He's the one Jin looks to for guidance when he fails to save his uncle. And now you're telling me that he was a bad guy all along? And look, I know that they made it out to be that Jin was not super close with his dad, and I get that. But the thing is, there's a difference between you not being very close with your dad and you thinking your dad is literally a murderer, a mass murderer. There's a complete difference between those two things because in the game, they made it seem like his dad was not close with him in a way because the death of his mother changed him and broke his dad in a way that it was just hard for him to connect to his son after that. And then all of a sudden, this DLC, they change it so that he's like one of those misogynistic dads. It's like, oh, I don't know how to take care of a son, so I'm just going to make him a ruthless killer. And that's what I'm talking about. That's the character's essence I'm talking about. For those of you that want to come out and be like, he was never close to his dad in the game. I know he wasn't super close to his dad, but I feel like he wouldn't look to his dad for guidance and he wouldn't be the wind at his back if he thought he was a murderer. I feel like he would not have the connection with him if it wasn't for that. And they ruined that in this DLC. They already started ruining the series before the game came out, is all I'm saying. But I can't deny my love for the first game, excluding the DLC, obviously. I'd like more than anything for my fears about this game to be wrong. But guys, I've been burned one too many times by the New Age California Sony. We could try and say that we don't know what's going to happen, that this company's different, and that they've done good before. But how many times have we said that in the past 6 years? Look at all the dots that I've laid out before your eyes. Can you see the line yet? Can you see where it leads? I can, so let me ask you one more time. Are you scared now? Let me know in the comments what you guys think about this game and its situation. Are you going to be picking it up? What do you think of its supposed changes? This has been Tio, guys. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. See you guys later.